The day I found out my husband was cheating didn't start with a fight. It started with a notification. His phone was on the kitchen counter, plugged in and charging. That alone was unusual. He never left his phone unattended. I was folding laundry when the screen lit up. A message. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the words were right there on the lock screen. "Where are you? Why haven't you come yet?" No name, no contact picture, just a WhatsApp notification. My heart started racing. He had told me he was working late. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to disappear, waiting for my mind to calm down and tell me I was overreacting. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. Before I could think clearly, I heard the front door open. He walked quickly, scanning the room. "Have you seen my phone?" he asked. His voice wasn't calm. It was tense. I don't know why I did it, but I slid the phone under the couch pillow. "I haven't seen it," I said quietly. He looked irritated, nervous. Then he did something I didn't expect. He picked up his own phone from his pocket and dialed his number. And suddenly, from beneath the pillow, his phone started ringing. The room went silent. He stared at me. I slowly reached under the pillow and handed it to him. For a second, I thought he would explain, apologize, laugh it off. Instead, he grabbed it and headed straight for the door. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Out," he said. "Don't wait up." And that was it. He walked out like nothing had happened. But I wasn't done. I grabbed my keys and followed him. I kept my distance, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. 10 minutes later, he pulled into the parking lot of a hotel downtown. Not a cheap motel, a nice one. I watched him walk inside confidently, like he had done this before. I waited 2 minutes, then followed. The lobby was quiet, soft music playing, couples laughing. And then I saw him, sitting at a table near the window, across from a woman. She was young, well-dressed, smiling at him like he was the only man in the world, and he was smiling back, the kind of smile he hadn't given me in months. They weren't arguing, they weren't discussing work, they were flirting, laughing, touching hands, like I didn't exist, like our marriage didn't exist. I didn't cause a scene, I didn't scream. I stood there for a moment, feeling something inside me break, and then harden. I went home quietly. That night he came back late, acting normal, asking if I had eaten dinner. I looked at him differently, and I realized something important. He wasn't going to confess, so I would have to prepare. The confrontation happened 3 days later. I told him I knew. He denied it, of course he did, until I described the hotel, the table by the window, her red dress. That's when his face changed. He didn't apologize. He said something worse. If you weren't so distant, this wouldn't have happened. Blaming me. A week later, he asked for a divorce. 2 weeks later, he told me I needed to move out. The house was in his name. He had planned everything carefully, or so he thought. I left quietly. No drama, no begging. But I wasn't helpless. What he didn't realize was that I had invested money into his business years ago. Money from my inheritance. Money he had used to expand. And legally, my name was attached to more than he remembered. While he was busy building a new life with her, I was building a case. I hired a lawyer. I gathered documents, bank statements, investment records. And 6 months later, the truth hit him harder than any argument ever could. Half of his company legally belonged to me, which meant half of his income, half of his assets, half of everything he thought he controlled. The woman from the hotel, she didn't stay long once the money situation became complicated. Funny how loyalty disappears when comfort does. He called me, begged me, asked if we could settle privately. But I remembered that night in the hotel, the way he laughed, the way he looked free. so I stayed calm. In court, the judge ruled fairly, very fairly. I walked away with financial security, ownership in the company, and enough independence to never rely on him again. He lost more than a wife. He lost stability, respect, control. A year later, I drove past that same hotel. I didn't feel anger, I felt gratitude, because that notification, that simple message on a lock screen, was the moment I stopped being blind. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy you. Sometimes it reveals you. And the day he thought he replaced me was the day I started replacing him.